Hello, everyone. This is Brother Timothy Earl Hoskins from the Lord's House of Prayer in Jackson, Tennessee, coming to you today with a new video. I want to thank you for your views and your comments on my previous videos, and I thank you for your prayers as I continually pray for you. There's a lot going on in this world, in this country, in your personal lives, and we need to continue to pray for one another and read in the Word. I want to ask you to pray for our country, our leaders especially, and our government and our churches. Pray for the nation of Israel and for its security and independence. Pray for our men and women in the military. Pray that there will be peace in the Middle East, and pray that President Trump's able to bring about a denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. That would be amazing if he was able to accomplish that. Maybe eventually somebody will give him some credit for doing some good. He's already accomplished a lot, and we need to pray for him and his administration. What I want to talk about today, and a lot of times I'm just leading back to this. I've got some other videos that are similar. But when we do whatever we're doing in life, whether it's our job, whether it's helping people, whether it's being compassionate to people, we need to do it with God first. We need to have a godly heart, a right heart, a contrite heart, and do all this in the right way. We don't do it because we expect something in return. We don't do it because we think we'll be blessed or because it's going to help us get into the kingdom of heaven. We do it because it's the right thing to do. And so many times we get caught up in trying to please something of this world, whether it's another person, whether it's a boss at work, it's a co-worker, whether it's would be a woman or a man and that you're interested in having a relationship with, whatever it is. When you're willing to put something else or to try to please something else other than pleasing God, you're going to be disappointed, because no matter how hard you work at something, or just something I found out personally, or how nice you try to be, or something of this world, whatever it is, a person or a company or an entity or whatever, is going to ask more of you than what you're capable of doing. And when you can't do that, they're done with you. And that gives you a feeling of not being useful, or not being helpful, or not thinking there's something wrong with your effort or your work or your whatever you're trying to please. If it's something of this world, you're going to wind up being disappointed. And I want to read, I'm going to start in Colossians, and I'm going to read chapter 4, verse 23 and 24. It says, "And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ." And I'm going to go ahead and read Ephesians 2, 6, 7, and 8. It says, with good will doing service as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. You've got to know God's watching everything. He's watching everything that's going on. He knows what you're doing. He knows why you're doing it. He knows the intent of your heart. The Bible tells us this. He can judge that. He knows it. If you're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and you're doing it without any, expecting any payment or any kind of reward for yourself, God's going to see that. He's going to know if you're a good person or not, or doing the right thing. But if you're worried about pleasing a person, you can work as hard as you want to and put all the effort into it, but at some point they're going to have one thing that you can't do, or or that you're going to fail at, or that you're not going to be as good at. And then it's going to be, well, we need somebody else. Or, but God knows when you've done all you can do, and you did it the right way. And it's kind of like I read this comment on Facebook, and it was something to do with LeBron James and Kevin Durant, how we're riding in the back of a vehicle and said some things about politics or Donald Trump or something. And Laura Ingraham on Fox come up with this, just shut up and play basketball, or shut up and dribble, I believe is what she said. And then I heard somebody make a comment saying, well, when you give $10 million to a certain charity to help, underprivileged people, then you can say something. Well, that's what, again, that's kind of the example. You can't expect somebody to give $10 million to a charity to help somebody if they don't have it. It's kind of like when the widow, gave like a mite, and everybody was criticizing her because she didn't give enough, and Christ said, well, she gave everything she had, so she gave more than anybody. So it's all relative, but people, again, that's the world, saying because you didn't give enough money or as much money as somebody else, you don't care as much. And that's kind of the way the world is. God knows what you're doing. He knows if you're giving $1 and that's all you can give, or more than you should give, then He's going to know that. But just because somebody else give $1,000 don't mean they care any more than you, or that they're invested any more than in wanting to help people than you are. But that's just the way. If you do it with God first, then you can feel good about what you did. But if you do it and compare it to the world, and people compare it, to what somebody else did that's in the world, then you're going to feel like you didn't do enough. I want to read in James, but if we keep God first, we're going to have the reward that we should have. If we're doing it to please somebody in the world, then maybe we're taking a shortcut. Maybe we're cheating something of God to appease something of the world. And I've said this before, it says that in the Bible that the love of the world is a great enmity to God, and that's a great hatred. You can't do both. You need to do what's right in God's eyes and keep Him first, and don't worry about what's in the world. I want to read in James 1, 2, and 4. And again, this is all part of the tribulations and stuff that we're going to go through. In James 1, 2, and 4 says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So, we know this is going to happen. But if we ever let ourselves be consumed with trying to please something of this world, then we're going to forget about pleasing God and what the final reward and the best reward that we can have is, and that's at the end, when we're going to be with God and be an immortal being and be able to see all of His creation and be with Him and all be together and all be in love, and there's going to be no sickness, or there's going to be no disease, there's going to be no hell, there's going to be no devil or Satan or anybody else coming against you. And I want to read 1 Corinthians 9, and I'm going to read chapter 24 through 27. And again, this is about talking about competition. I believe I don't compete with anybody for anything. It doesn't matter if it's out here, playing basketball anymore, which I don't do much anymore, or whether it's trying to impress a female, or whether it's trying to do something better than somebody else at work. I don't try to compete in a worldly competition. I tried to make myself a better person than I was yesterday. If that means that I put a little more effort into my work, if that means I help one more person than I did yesterday, or I talk to one more person about God today than I did yesterday, or if I smile at one more person, or or if I just listen to one more person's problems today than I did yesterday, um, then I think that's what you should do. You should, if you're going to compete, compete with yourself. Make yourself a better person than you were yesterday, and forget about all this nonsense that goes on in the world. Because if you compete with the world, you got to shortchange God to get those wins, and I just know that from experience. But I'm going to read 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 27. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, not as in certainty, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body, and bring it unto subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. So, do it for a spiritual crown. Do it to please God and not to please the world. Because in a worldly competition, they want one winner, so they can talk really great about the winner and talk bad about everybody else that lost. I guess unless you're Donald Trump and he won, and they talk bad about him, better about Hillary Clinton that lost. So you can figure that one out for yourself. But you gotta keep God first and make yourself a better person than you were yesterday. Strive to please God, not mankind, and not the world. I'm going to finish up in Peter. I'm going to read 1 Peter in chapter 1, 6 through 9. And this is kind of getting to where, the end's going to be in your salvation. 1 Peter 1, 6 through 9. Wherein ye greatly rejoice, though now for a season, if need be, ye are in heaviness through manifold temptations, that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen ye love, in whom though now ye see him not, yet believing, ye rejoice with joy unspeakable and full of glory. And here's the end. Receiving the end of your faith, even the salvation of your souls. So if what we do for the right reasons, and do it because it is right, God's going to see that. It doesn't matter how the world says about it. It doesn't matter how mistreated you are by the world. It doesn't matter how much trials and tribulations you have to go through, or if you have to work harder, fine. If you have to do things better, fine. But just keep God first, because God's going to see when you're doing everything you can do, and he's going to reward you for that, and the world will not. But don't worry about worldly competition. Make yourself a better person than you were yesterday. Do the right thing. Keep your eyes on the prize through God, and know that he sent his son to die on the cross for our sins, and that through his blood we'll have everlasting life. We'll be an immortal being, and that's the only way that we can do that. If you put your faith in the world, in pleasing the world or something of this world, you will be disappointed. But you'll never be disappointed in putting God first and doing what you can to please him.